Welcome to the Catalyst Life Coaching Podcast with John Kim and Noelle Cordeaux. If you're inspired to begin your own life coaching practice or just want to learn a little bit more about what it's all about, visit JRNI.co. That's JRNI.co for more information. Your adventure awaits.
Hey guys, on this week's episode of the Catalyst Life Coaching Intensive Podcast, Noelle, what are we talking about? Travel. And what does travel have to do with life coaching, self-betterment, being a better person, the human journey?
Yeah, I mean, humans, if you think about it, we're really a migratory species. And we were built to roam this earth and walk hundreds and thousands of miles. And if you think about the evolution of human history, all humans have been doing is literally running around this planet. And so whenever there is an evolutionary trait that we have, where my mind goes to, I don't know about your mind, is what is the benefit? How come this is so? And it turns out that traveling actually has a series of significant health benefits, as well as just kind of opening you up to new and different perspectives.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm new to travel. I've only been to two major, like different country, eat, pray, love kind of journeys in my life. And I'm just kind of getting it now. I'm just experiencing the power of travel and, the internal shift and transformation that can happen through travel. So what about you? Have you traveled often? A lot? Far? No?
Yeah, I've traveled really widely throughout my life. And honestly, we have to acknowledge that it's a privilege to be able to do that, right? So I have been incredibly blessed to have traveled extensively and widely. And it's really built into who I am. I'm kind of a human tumbleweed. I get antsy if I stay in one place for too long.
Oh, so you actually enjoy travel. It's in your blood.
Yes, it's not only in my blood, but I start to get depressed if I don't have something new, a change of environment, stimulation, moving me from one place to another.
Right. So let's talk about travel, the benefits of travel. What are they for you?
Gosh, so I mean, if we were going to start psychoanalyzing me, that would get weird real quick with why do I need to pick up and leave every couple months? But from a very fundamental perspective, it keeps your mind sharp and it promotes heart health. And it enhances your creativity and it relieves stress and boosts mental health and it shifts your perspective. It broadens your perspective, not only of the world, but also of yourself.
Yeah.
And it increases connection to others and yourself, which has endless benefits.
Yeah, I used to think that travel was something you did that was extra, if you made a certain amount of money. And I always feel guilty about traveling. So I never left Los Angeles. I was too busy grinding and trying to build something. And it wasn't until my divorce that I told myself I need to go somewhere. So I went to Italy and I hit Florence, Barcelona, and it was amazing. It blew my mind. I didn't, I was like a kid at Disneyland and seeing the buildings, the culture, the way that people lived, how they were. I didn't realize all that, and it made the world big. It changed my lenses. It made me realize that not everyone is like the little bubble that I live in.
Oh, 100%. Now, when you had that experience of the shifting and the lens changing, how long did that last for you?
Well, I remember it still today, but it lasted, I think, a few months, and then you kind of, fall back into the same routines and then the same. I feel like you put your old lenses back on as you come back home and you give yourself the same experiences. But I think that's why I think travel is important. I think that every time you go, it stretches you in a different way.
Oh, yeah, 100%. You're faced with the reality of living outside of your comfort zone, which gives you the opportunity to transform how you see things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just got home from Bali, and the takeaway from Bali was completely different. So in Italy, I was floored by the buildings. Every building in Florence is like a work of art and from the 1800s, and like you can't look at any building and not be blown away, right? And it's like marble, and you're wondering how this was created by man. In Bali, what I was taken aback by was the kindness. So, they're on an island, they're very spiritual, and they're extremely kind people, to the point where it's like if you took their kindness and brought it to LA, people would be like, this person's weird. That's how kind they are. I mean, eye
Dude,
contact.
that's why everybody thinks I'm weird in LA.
Exactly. Maybe what you need to do is you need to live in Bali so you can fit in with your people.
Maybe.
Yeah, the eye contact, smiles, bowing with the praying hands, and it's not one person, it's every local, not tourists, but all the locals are extremely kind, and it's amazing. Yeah, and that's kind of the big takeaway from there is the kindness and the spirituality, and of course, the amount of humans you could fit on one scooter.
Right. Seriously. Seriously. So, a lot of times our view of ourselves tends to be informed by the immediate world around us and by the images that we consume. So that would be television, social media, print magazines, billboards, which of course shows us a very, very narrow, curated version of life. How do you think the curated version of life that the commodified, manufactured world kicks out to you and says, John Kim, this is what you need to achieve in life, compares to how you experienced people living in Bali?
Yes. So it's almost like the Jim Carrey movie where he didn't realize that his whole world was made up and fake, and that he was actually on it was a TV show. I don't know if you remember this movie. And then when he found out he was trying to break out, I feel like my whole life, the advertisement, the billboards, the commercialization, and what we should strive for, and all of that has been programmed by Los Angeles and me living here for 43 years. And then when I went to Bali and I saw how different, starting with the pace of life, what matters. I did a quick interview, a video with one of the drivers, and in Bali, you're either on a scooter or you're driving, and I was asking him about just simply, what made him happy, or if he was happy, his definition of happy, and his response was almost like, "Why are you not happy?" Meaning that he saw happy as just part of life. It wasn't something like in the big cities where we are always chasing and measuring and trying to reach. Happy in Bali is just a state, and it has to do with being mindful and present and kind.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. And that is a classic example of what you gain from traveling, because watching firsthand how other people live is almost like viewing the world through their eyes, and
Yes.
that broadens your view.
Yes.
And
Now, granted, the other side is that Bali's all he knows. So, if he grew up in Los Angeles, of course, he would have different opinions and lenses and all that too.
Oh, yeah. So watching and colliding with other cultures forces you to challenge your own assumptions.
Yes, it makes the world very big. It makes you question what is valuable to you. It really shakes your life a little bit,
It does shake your life. And I think that I just stumbled on the talking point that can explain my situation. So it has been very well researched that people often have epiphanies while they travel, and they're able to view their problems from a more detached view. And I think that sums up me pretty nicely. It's like, oh shit, things feel tense. Let's get the fuck out of Dodge.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you this. Can that be a problem, or can that be unhealthy if every time there's anxiety, you're running? Meaning
yeah.
you're traveling, right?
It's a straight form of avoidance.
Sure,
And,
sure.
I'm notorious for throwing up really interesting relational and all travel related distractions whenever my life gets a little bit messy.
Well, thank you for being so honest. But I know that so many people can relate to that. I personally know friends who have been everywhere and they have admitted partly it's just to avoid their life at home.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
100%. And it for me it feels like a tightness. And then as soon as I know that essentially I'm getting on a plane, I start to breathe a little bit, and I'm like, okay, I'm getting out into the world. I'm going to be on my own. And it's also because I'm just so fucking independent that I need that space.
Sure, sure. And also maybe you come home with new answers.
Oh, 100%. I come home softened. I come home humbled. I come home with a different perspective. I come home joyful, grateful. I look at my partner, my home with fresh eyes and say, God, how beautiful this is.
Yeah,
Um,
so maybe that's not such a bad thing. I mean, maybe you do run away. Maybe by running away from yourself, you end up running towards yourself. It's a boomerang.
it is a boomerang. It is a boomerang. So let's talk about the epiphanies part. Did you have any epiphanies while you were traveling in Bali?
So many, yes. I one of the revelations, obviously, the power of kindness, and so here's the thing about Bali is, uh, their transportation system is so crazy that um, there's so many scooters, there's no traffic lights, there's no system there. So uh, if people weren't kind, there would be just floor there would be tip scooters and dead people everywhere. But because there's
John, that
kindness.
sounds like Venice.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But because there's kindness, people don't lay on their horns. People give the other person the right of way. It all kind of flows. It's really magical. It's mysterious. It's like, if it was Los Angeles, it would not work, right? Because of road rage and because of how, when we're in our cars, we're different people. But in Bali, because people are kind, they do tap on their horns, but it's more like I'm right behind you. It's a no one ever lays on their horn, and there's no screaming, there's no fighting, and they're human. I'm sure there's they get annoyed and irritated and stuff, but the traffic system, although it's crazy, it works because people are being respectful and kind. And so one of my revelations, one of my epiphanies is the power of that. That's just traffic, but when you let that ripple to other areas like meals and human connection, and even the people in the vendors, the people in the restaurants, all the bus boys, the servers, that kind of kindness, when you're surrounded by that, um, it it's impossible to not look inward and see the power of what kindness can do to you. And also, if you are not a kind person, you're going to it's going to be revealed very fast.
Yeah, so that the cultural immersion, you're kind of forced to grapple and contend with your internal structures.
Yes, yes. The big piece is ceremonies. There are ceremonies because there's such spiritual people. Buddhism, Hindu. There's so much um, celebration of something greater that there's no way that can affect you or question your human journey in existence.
That's so cool. So, a little bit of what's going on behind the scenes there. Your neuro pathways are really heavily influenced by environment and experience. So, just by gaining exposure to the visual affect of having something new, ceremony, kindness, cultural immersion happen in your life, your brain synapses are starting to spark and connect to each other. And if you choose to follow through with your epiphanies and your new learning by employing experience, insight, experience, you will start redirecting your brain in a different direction.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And the final piece for me was the connection they have with nature. So there's different parts of Bali, and if you go to Bali and you just go to one part, you're not going to do it justice, and you may not like it. But if you see the jungle and the beach and all the areas, it's a little paradise, and it's impossible to not connect with nature because you're on top of mountains. There's monkeys around you. I watched elephants. Like it's very different than living in the city where it's a concrete jungle.
Yeah, and nature changes your brain as well.
Yeah, it not only changes your brain, I'm sure, but it just your energy and your connection to your environment changes.
Did you know that we have a pretty strong genetic match with trees?
No, how so?
Well, that's exactly it. We have, I think it's about a 25% genetic match with trees. And because of that, it's actually healthy for humans to just stand next to a tree.
Sure. I could see that. I could see going on nature walks and feeling different just by literally being around trees.
100%. It has profound effects on us. And being out in nature without distractions from technology is one way to repair our prefrontal cortex. Our prefrontal cortex is our decision maker, and it gets really overtired from 25 tabs open on your computer and text message and Facebook message and the whole kit and caboodle. So if you want to repair that, restore creativity and calm to your brain, put your phone away and go hang out with some trees.
Yes, absolutely. And I gotta say, now more than ever, we can travel, and I'm seeing it everywhere. I mean, even within our team, our team members are always somewhere, and they're working remote. And because of the internet, we actually have the ability to do that. In the '50s, everyone just had the punch a clock. They couldn't travel as much. It wasn't a thing.
It's a choice. It's a choice. And so, as we're talking about that, we also have to talk about, the privilege of it.
Yeah,
On our
absolutely.
team, nobody has a child. So that's a huge one, right? So the kids aren't in school, but I'm about to leave Philadelphia, come to Los Angeles. Julie's leaving Los Angeles, going to Israel. Steph just left Colorado, hit San Francisco.
Yeah, that's like the norm now. It's crazy.
Yeah, and that's how we roll. And the benefit there is if we can all manage our time zones and our inboxes, which seems to be the challenge, it keeps our brains so much sharper. It builds resilience at the cellular level, and it fights off degenerative disease in a similar manner that intermittent fasting does.
Oh, that's really interesting. How so? How are those two related?
Yeah, so when you with intermittent fasting, when you let your body get hungry, your body naturally after 8 hours starts to fight off and kill and basically eat all of the maladaptive cells that
Right.
might one day turn into cancer or whatever. The same thing happens with your brain when it's challenged and challenged like appropriately, not talking about just walking around the block, but thrusting yourself as you did into a completely new environment where you have to use your brain and your resources and all of your senses. And it just pooh. So all of the parts of your brain that are compounded by degenerative disease are potentially delayed because this cognitive stimulation due to exposure improves your memory, your concentration, particularly in individuals with dementia. And the stimuli is so intense that it's forcing you to experience the flavors of life as it was meant to be experienced, not this contrived go home, watch TV, get up, go to work, come home, watch TV that a lot of people do.
Here's what just hit me with what you said. The flavors of life that are meant to be experienced. And I think
Yes.
that that was probably the greatest takeaway is that life isn't, it's not meant for us to just be behind screens. I mean, yes, we need to make money and build things and pursue our passions, but um, immersing yourself in different environments and activities and experiences, like literally putting yourself in that's, I think that's where life happens, not in just reading information, articles. I think this is the new way to enter the journey of self betterment, to go out and live because now we can. And so that's something to celebrate and to actually lean into, I think.
It is. And so if you're coaching folks and they want to take risks and they're scared, it's important to remember that when you spent a really long time isolating, whether it's isolating yourself just through routine or isolating yourself because you feel like your body's not good enough, because you feel like you're not good enough to really get out there into the world, taking the plunge with travel is a great way to rip the Band-Aid off.
Yes, and also you don't have to go across the country. You don't have to go to Italy or Bali. In 2 weeks, I'm going to drive up to Big Bear for a couple days to do some writing. You could go somewhere close. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be some epic adventure, right? Do what you can.
Do what you can, and it doesn't have to be fancy. I still laugh about my very poor decision staying in a hostel at South by Southwest.
Right.
But I will, for the rest of my life, I will remember trying to get into that second bunk after having one too many cocktails and just really having an existential experience. That will live legendary in
Yeah,
my
but
mind.
you know what I love about you is you're able to see that as a lesson, but also laugh at yourself and laugh at the situation.
Oh, it's hilarious. My life is a sitcom.
I love it, guys. Travel, create those experiences for yourself, and live by going somewhere.
Awesome.
Thank you. Be well.